Hey, I'm back again. It's Allison. So, like I said in my last video, I want to talk about why I have struggled so much, because I want to maybe try to relate to other people watching who might be experiencing some of the same things. I want to share my process. And I think some of my observations, if I do say so myself, might be interesting just because of, interesting if you are interested in gender in our society. I'll say that. A little bit of advertising. Okay, so, alright. So first of all, my struggle with being butch goes back quite a long ways. So I was always kind of a masculine girl when I was younger, as I've said in other videos at great length, I may add. So when I came out as gay, I thought that, so I was kind of afraid of being butch. Like, I knew of butch women, and I kind of knew of the term, and I would see them, but I was like, oh man, I hope that I don't end up as a butch woman. And I pushed back against it for quite a long time. So that in itself is kind of crazy. So I think that the deal with that is that it's so hard to be confident as a butch female in the face of other people's homophobia, phobia of people who are differently gendered in some way. And it's a strong thing. Like, you see that in a whole bunch of places. Now, one crazy realization that I've had lately is that there are even a fair number of people in the lesbian community who are not thrilled with butches. Like, for instance, my wife and I were at a dinner get-together recently, and so this couple is, let's see, I'm struggling with saying this because I've recently had these people find me on YouTube that I didn't think would find me, and nothing bad happened. It was perfectly fine, but I'm just realizing I should be careful what I say about people, because you never know who can find you. Anyways, the point is that there are these two women, they're married, and one of them is pretty femmy, the other one is kind of butch, but more like soft butch, and they made some comments about stuff like one of them convinced the other one to finally shop in the women's clothes department. And my wife, who is definitely a lover of butches, and I, in our minds, we were like, what? That's such a travesty. Why would you want somebody who's leaning towards butch to not lean towards butch? That's crazy. But that's how they felt about it. And so I mentioned that I had gone to the conference, and I was really excited about it, and I thought that maybe the more butch one would kind of relate to me about it, but both of them were just like, oh, cool, okay. And they didn't really say anything, and because of that comment about the clothes that they had made, it just made me realize what I'd heard a little bit before, or just kind of noticed a little bit, which is that there are quite a few lesbians who, number one, well, I mean, of course I understand if somebody's not attracted to butches, that's fine, but the thing is that sometimes lesbians will be opposed to butches or think that they are ugly or whatever, just like so many mainstream straight people think. So that's crazy. I mean, that people in your own community would not be totally supportive of you, that's hard to deal with. And, talking about the mainstream culture, that is obviously a lot worse, because butches are, like, invisible. So, I mean, even on shows about gay people, you get femme lesbians, as the L Word has definitely shown us, and, I mean, my wife and I have been watching some British show called Skins, which is actually really good, by the way. There is some lesbian action going on in the third season, which is really good. It's very well done. But the thing is, both of those girls are femi. And, you know, like in Will and Grace, of course, you got Jack, who's a flaming gay man. But then, like, you never see butch women, like, ever, unless they're being made fun of. I remember this one episode of Will and Grace where Jack was doing some project of some sort with these two butch type of lesbians who he hated, and he couldn't work with them, and he made fun of them, and made fun of their Birkenstocks and their flannel shirts, and they were totally stereotypes, and the show is basically making fun of them. So, I mean, that's what you see. And, like, the L word, as we all know, there are not really butches on the L word. There's Shane. Personally, I don't really think Shane is, like, a butch. She can be described as kind of butch, yeah, but I mean, she wears makeup, she's got, like, girls' jeans. Come on. And then there is, Max, who's trans, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, it's great that they've represented that, of course. I'm all in favor of trans people being represented, too, because, I mean, as Mainly Butch mentioned in her recent video about that crazy, awful, hateful blog by Dirty White Boy 67, like, I think butches can often really identify with trans guys, and, I mean, I had been thinking a whole lot about transition, so I don't mean any of this to be against trans guys at all. Like, I think trans guys are great. But the thing is, it's just interesting that on the L word they represented a trans guy instead of, like, your kind of, like, typical butch. Which reminds me of what people say, for instance, this hateful blogger, that transitioning is becoming a trend and that it's just, like, fashionable or something. And I don't know that I agree with that. But anyways, the thing is, I haven't seen butches on TV unless they're being made fun of, and that is only once in a while. And even that is only once in a while. So, or sometimes in movies you'll see butches, they'll be maybe victims, like Brandon Tina, who of course is trans, not a butch woman, but still, it's, you know, mainstream people would kind of lump that together if they weren't educated, so it would appear as if someone who seemed maybe related to a butch woman was just being victimized. And then that movie, The Kids Are Alright, which I've commented on before, those women are both pretty much kind of femi, like, not your, like, no makeup wearing, crew cut wearing, men's clothes wearing butch. They're not quite like that. See, which is why maybe I'm thinking now, maybe that's why I kind of identified with the man in that movie, because the women were kind of femi. So, and in ads in gay magazines, you know, gay magazines like Curve or The Advocate, they'll have ads from companies who are trying to appeal to the gay people, and they'll have a couple of gay people in the ads. And of course there's a whole bunch of ads with men, and there are some ads with women, although I kind of feel like there's more with men, but even the ads with women, I can't recall seeing butch. Like, sometimes it'll be kind of a dykey type of woman with, like, spiked hair, but not, like, butch. So, I mean, come on. There's, like, no butches anywhere in, like, media. Nowhere. So, you've got to, like, search out this handful of books that about butches, or by butches. So it's so hard. It's like you feel invisible. That's how I've been feeling. Just like I feel like I'm the only one. Not so much now, but that's what I had been feeling for so long. So it makes you feel like the butch identity doesn't exist, or that it's not valid, and it's like, that it's something silly or something ugly. So I just sympathize so much with my fellow butches, butch girls, baby butches, whatever the case may be, because that is really hard. It's like less visibility than femi-gay men, less visibility than fem-lesbians. It's crazy. And then, of course, when you're talking about, like, butches of color or something, I would imagine that they would feel the same, maybe to a greater extent. I mean, I don't want to make assumptions, but I don't want to make my position out to seem like it's the worst, because I'm sure it's not. Anyways, yeah, and as I've said probably multiple times before, there's like no video blogs on YouTube by butch women, except mainly butch. Then there's some gender queers who I've enjoyed watching for sure, but not that many. Make videos, people. So, yeah, so I can see why so many butches would get to the point of kind of giving up on living in the middle, as I've heard people phrase it, and think that it's so hard, because it is. And, they would just feel down on themselves, because that's how I felt. So, I just want to say a word relating to trans people. So I know that probably most of the people that I've seen on YouTube or that I've met or whatever are genuinely transgendered. I do not want to debate that, because I know that if you've gotten to the point of like having people call you by a different name, having people call you by he, actually going to the doctor and asking for testosterone, or like making surgery arrangements or getting surgery, I mean, if you get to that point, you gotta be pretty serious and genuine about it. And I never got to any of those points, so yeah, and my point is that I don't feel like I am trans. Yeah, I feel like kind of genderqueer, but not like trans in the sense of wanting to transition. So, what I'm saying would not really apply to trans guys, so I don't want to give anybody that impression. I'm just talking about girls, women, whatever, who are butch, but might be considering transition, and people might get a bit upset if I'm saying something like that, but because people are like, don't tell anybody that they shouldn't transition, and I'm not telling people that they shouldn't transition. I'm just talking about people who might be able to relate to me, maybe people who have some kind of dysphoria about their bodies, but they can't totally see themselves transitioning as men. And that's the people who I'm talking about. Anyways. So, yeah, I have seen people on YouTube, or just heard people going about the world, who seem kind of pressured to transition or to think about transitioning because they feel just so down on themselves, and they have been buffeted by other people's butch phobia or homophobia or whatever, and they're having such a hard time, feeling invisible, like I've said, feeling like they're the only ones. So I can see how some butches might go the transition route, at least for a while, and maybe it doesn't work for them. Or like me, okay, I was thinking about transition, but now I feel so much happier just feeling proud how I am, and it's a genuine feeling. So I'm serious about it, and gosh, this is complicated to say. I'm out of time. So my point is, like, don't feel pressured, look for community, look for books, reach out to other people, because you're not the only one, and being butch can be so awesome. I feel great. I mean, I feel sexy now. I feel good about myself. I feel more confident. It's awesome. So just don't give up if you're dealing with things like what I have been dealing with. All right. Bye.